the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashlie Walton, joined by Sergeant Walton. Clint, how are you?
I'm good.
You know, if you're listening to this and you have not yet purchased a rechargeable cordless vacuum, 10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah.
I feel like at this point, we have one in like every single room of our house, and definitely doesn't replace a full-sized vacuum, but it helps us to be able to make sure that we can just take all of our shedding dog fur and clean it up every day.
Yeah, it's something that's super convenient, just having, oh, there's fur here, let me just use this real quick. And it's not having to go and plug this in and do all this whole setup or anything.
Or like replug the vacuum in when you move around the house.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm mentioning that because yesterday I was vacuuming and I was just filled with so much gratitude, and I was thinking about how, Clint, you're my favorite person to hang out with.
You're mine.
And a few days ago, we're sitting in our house and we were finished with work and we were watching a movie, and for some reason our Ring doorbell camera ringer is very low when somebody rings it. And you didn't hear it, but I did. And I said, someone's at our front door and they're ringing our doorbell. Turn down the TV. And we were literally just like telling this little white lie inside of our house by not letting the person know that we knew that they were at our door, because we didn't, we were finally like winding down, and that was just our moment and our time. And it was just fun, like doing something like that sneaky with you. And I love the kind of sneakiness and the like marital secrets that only exist within a marriage.
Yeah, it's super, it's funny because we're like, shh, and then our dogs are kind of going crazy, and they would do that if we were home, if we weren't. And it takes me a minute to figure out, like, oh, I got to turn down the TV or pause it or do whatever I have to do. But it's really nice having those little moments, because we're just sitting there looking at each other, and it's just having that space and time together.
Yeah. And, I was thinking about it with today's episode, because there's a lot of first responders that are respected at work, but they feel like they're invisible at home. And sometimes it can be really disorienting when it comes to this level of contrast, when you're somebody that people look to for leadership and authority and answers, even when you're at work. But then for a lot of people that I've talked to, they come home and they literally feel unseen or unheard or invisible. And the thing that I hear on repeat all of the time is, it's like I'm just living with the roommate.
Yeah. And I think you start seeing the effect of you start going to work all the time, and you're spending more time at work than you are at home, because you're either people are forced to hear you there, or like you're actually being heard by your subordinates or by your partners, and you almost have a team in that home environment. You feel more at home than at work.
Yeah, I think that sometimes there's a gap between authority and intimacy that becomes too wide to bridge without actually understanding why it exists in the first place.
Yeah, and I think over time, you start getting into this routine, this comfortability with being at work more so. And when you're not having that same connection at home, you should be working harder at having that connection at home than you are at work.
Yeah, it's very interesting when we think about and break down the psychological concept here. It's role dissonance and intimacy avoidance. And when it comes to role dissonance, this happens basically when the demands and the identity of your role directly conflict with the demands and the identity of the other. So for first responders, for example, I think that the authority and control and even that emotional containment that make you super effective on the job are actually the exact qualities that create that distance in your intimate relationships.
And I think that's why it's so important. And we've talked about this before of differentiating your work life and your home life, and being able to come home and not be that authoritarian, not be that person, unless you need to be, of course, but it's having that separation of your work and home life.
Yeah, something really interesting to me is when I get on a call, especially with somebody that I've never had a coaching relationship with before. And a lot of the times we're face to face on a video call, and maybe they're in their unit or they're in somewhere that's like their zone, their environment where they feel comfortable. And eventually what happens is there's this breakdown in the conversation where you can almost physically see their shoulders like let go when they start to unload the things that are happening within their life. And it's really interesting when I see individuals individuals that feel more confident and more capable at work than they do in their personal relationships, especially when they start to break down what that actually means.
And I think it's this false reality that we put on when we put on our uniforms. It gives us that we have this representation of this uniform is giving me that power, almost like, say, Batman per se. Like, it's Batman's just Bruce Wayne until he puts on his outfit, his costume, and turns into Batman. And it's almost leading two different lives in that instance, when in all reality you're the same person. It's just how you hold yourself in that day to day.
Another way that I see this transpiring in the day-to-day is some people might sense that their partner doesn't actually see them and they don't even know how to let them. And maybe you feel frustrated that the skills that you obtained at work don't actually translate into your home life.
And I think that's where we solve other people's problems all the time, going out in the public and addressing their issues and concerns and being there for people in their biggest needs time. But when we go home, like, it's you're tired, you're drained, you have all this stuff going on where you should save that energy for being in your home life and, do everything and anything you can while you're at work, but be able to always have that when you go home.
Another thing that I see, and we can call this a gap between authority and intimacy and how it might be affecting your marriage, is I see people that are leading confidently at work, but then they shut down emotionally when they get home.
And I think that's that emotional fatigue that we deal with on a regular basis. It's like, I know of so many different personalities that I work with on a regular basis that, you have this false confidence when they put on the uniform, and then when they're out of the uniform, they just shelter off and they go their separate way. And that's where I think it's hard, because we put on that false reality all the time. We're not being true to ourselves in that nature, or in that instance.
I was looking at a Facebook post sometime this week, and it was a police officer with his head down and a cap on. And then above that cap, it was listing all of the different hats that a police officer has to wear. Things like being a lawyer and a babysitter and a therapist and so forth. And it's really interesting, because I think that for a lot of first responders, they default to fixing and directing instead of just listening and connecting when they're at home.
Yeah, because you get it so ingrained, because when you're at work, you're always solving all these problems. You're always doing this for others, and you're not able to be there. Like, it's you're not separating that work life balance, and meaning is when you come home, you're emotionally fatigued and you're just shutting down. And when you're at work, you're just go nonstop. And it's like you have this false reality of, this is who I am, instead of having this complete understanding and being able to translate it into being, this is who I am on and off duty, and being true to yourself.
Yeah. And something else that I see is that there's a lot of police officers, especially, who are so ingrained in their job. And, it's important to do well with whatever you do for work. However, we can talk at lengths with how important it is to understand that your job is not you. And what I see, and something that I don't mind calling out, is when I see individuals that feel more like themselves in uniform than they do out of it.
And that's the unfortunate, like, it's one of those instances that, we never get prepared for going into this line of work. And I think this goes across the board with any type of first responder or a lot of different careers, is you start identifying as, this is who I am, instead of actually having that self-observance of who I am on and off duty. Like, it should kind of be cohesive across the board.
Totally. And there are ways to be able to kind of close that gap between authority and intimacy. And I think one of the most important ones is to just recognize that the skills that are required at home are different, but they're not less than.
Yeah, because when you start recognizing, like, you're wearing this different hat at home, it's not that you're changing who you are. It's more so of, I need to be here to listen to what's going on and be understanding and be present with my family, with the people that I love most.
And something I want to point out with you, Clint, is I see that you do a great job at making sure that you don't have this like false bravado when you're at work and you're talking to me, even when you're around other people.
Yeah, because, and I'm a true believer, like I'm going to be me no matter if I'm on or off duty. And I never want to put off this presence of, oh, well, I'm a cop and this is who I am to you, to anyone else, like, because there's no point to it. In my mind, there's no point to it.
I think one of the most important tools here is to just make sure that you're trying to create a ritual, something that's going to help you to be able to shift roles, but with intention, because your nervous system needs a signal that the shift is over and that home time has begun.
And I think that's something that over time it took, from when I first became a cop to where I'm at now, it's being able to have that transition. Like one of my cues that I have for myself is I walk to my truck and I get in it. And then as soon as I call you, like that is my signal. It's like, okay, I'm home time.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below. And as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.